I want you to understand something. This is very important. All the way from evangelical Christianity moving into Orthodox Judaism, the understanding is the Sabbath is Jewish. That's the understanding. And here's the kicker. They're right. It is Jewish. The same God who said, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy, is also the same God who said, honor your mother and father. The same God who said, don't take my name in vain. The same God who said, don't you dare covet. The same God who said, thou shalt not kill. And here's where I'm going with this. If you are going to concede to the fact that the Sabbath is Jewish, you must also concede to the fact that all the other commandments, honor your mother and father, not coveting, not taking the Lord's name in vain, are Jewish. Guess what? The entire book is Jewish. It's written by Jewish authors about a Jewish Messiah. That's what this book is about. And I take it a step further. The new covenant, which Christians, we cling to. This is our lifeline. We say we're children of the new covenant. I challenge you, go to the Word, both Old Testament and New Testament. You can go to Jeremiah 31, you can go to Hebrews chapter 8, and what you will find is that this prophet came out, the Lord is speaking through this prophet and saying, I am going to make a covenant with Israel. Israel. Gentiles are mentioned nowhere in regard to the new covenant. It is explicitly a Jewish thing. And that has to be understood. And I think of what Paul says. He says in Romans 3, he goes, what advantage has the Jew? What is the profit of circumcision? And he comes on and says, much chiefly in every way, because to them were committed the oracles of God. In other words, the Jews received the 10 commandments. They received the commandments of the living God. And so everything about the commandments, everything that we read, it's all Jewish. I want to take you to Zechariah 8:23, and it's our theme verse. And this is what it says. Thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days, 10 men from every language of the nations. Now, most people look at this, well, this is a minion, so this is good. This number is representative of the wholeness or the fullness of the Gentiles. And this is a call, this is a prophecy of what the Lord would do. He would open up a door to the Gentiles, and they're going to be coming in. They're going to be receiving the gospel. But here's what's fascinating. How these Gentiles receive the gospel, the imagery that is given is mind-blowing. Look at this. This is what it says. They're going to grasp the sleeve of a Jewish man, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Now, you'll notice the absence of any sort of idea of a Gentile separating themselves from a Jew and standing from afar and say, well, those commandments, that's Jewish. It's the exact opposite. They're grasping the sleeve. And you look at this, that term sleeve in the Hebrew, it's kanaf. It's kanaf. It means wing or corner. And that is very important because there is an incredible depth of information being passed along through this imagery. It's very specific. That's what they're grabbing. They're grabbing the kanaf. And at the kanaf of every Jew was what? Tzitzit. These tzitzit are at the corner of every Jew. And the imagery that we're being given as Gentiles would go and they would grab on to the tzitzit. And what do the tzitzit represent? Well, we're told in the Torah. It says, and you shall have the tassel, the tzitzit, that you may look upon it, and you're to remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them. That's what's represented. That's what these Gentiles are grabbing hold of with everything they got. Now, you really want your mind blown? Do you even know why these things were instituted? Because guess what? This was not part of the covenant given at Mount Sinai. That doesn't come until Numbers 15. And the reason it comes is because a guy broke the Sabbath. He defiled the Sabbath. The Lord commands him to be put to death. A massive tragedy happens in Israel. And so that it would not happen again, the Lord implements the wearing of tzitzit. Now think about that, because this tassel is such an incredible, powerful expression of the Shabbat. in addition to the rest of the commandments, but especially the Shabbat. And what are these Gentiles who are coming into the faith, into the gospel of Jesus? They're grabbing hold of the Shabbat and all the commandments. It's absolutely incredible. Let me build on this. Romans 11. And if some of the branches, meaning Jews, and this doesn't say, all the Jews, it says some. Some of the Jews were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, okay, you're Gentile, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree. See, there's no separation between the Jew and the Gentile. This narrative does not exist, especially in the New Testament. Especially. Ephesians 2:11 says, therefore remember that you once Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision made in the flesh by hands. In other words, what Paul is saying, he's like, we've always made a distinction. Us Jews have always made a distinction between us and you. You are the offscourging of humanity. This is how Gentiles were looked at. They were to be separate from Israel. They were pagans. They were heathens. We're Jews because God has given us his instructions. And we kneel before him and we follow him. God has given us the way of life, and we will not be unequally yoked. And so this is what he's describing. He goes on in verse 12, that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from what? The commonwealth of Israel. It's saying you are not a citizen. You have no citizenship amongst God's people. And strangers from the covenants of promise. Covenants in the plural. And in other words, you think about the covenant that God made with Abraham. You remember what he said? He gave this great promise to Abraham, this inheritance, his descendants would be blessed. But it's interesting, in Genesis 17, if you are not circumcised, you are cut off. You cannot be part of Abraham's household. Hence, uncircumcised Gentile, totally stranger and a foreigner from God's promises, from his covenant. And again, reminding you, the new covenant, as the prophet comes out and talks about the new covenant, it's not addressed to Gentiles. It's addressed to the Jews. It's addressed to Israel. Having no hope and without God in the world. Verse 13. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who were once afar off, you were nowhere near Israel, have been brought near by the blood of Christ. That's the power of Yeshua's blood. As the King of the Jews gave his life for all humanity, for the world, something miraculous happened that the Torah didn't allow to happen prior to his coming. And that is for you to come and to be one with Israel. Do not let the Gentiles, the son of a foreigner who's joined himself to the Lord. How would you join yourself to the Lord? Go back to verse 1, the gospel of Yeshua. That's how I join myself to the Lord. But don't let them speak saying, the Lord has utterly separated me from his people, nor let the eunuch say, here I am a dry tree. A warning. A warning comes attached to the gospel of Yeshua. And that warning is don't you Gentiles say that the Lord has separated you from the Jews. And yet, what do we read? Mind-blowing. The very thing the Lord said to not say, this is being heralded. He warned us. And now you have to decide, who am I going to hear from? Who am I going to listen to? Who am I going to receive from? Am I going to receive, thus says the Lord, the actual word of the Lord, who knew what the Gentiles would do? They would do the very thing he warned them. Just as he knew that his people would forget the Shabbat. And that's why it begins with Zachor. It begins, remember the Sabbath day. It was forgotten. This is prophecy. The Lord knew what the devil would convince the Gentiles of.
Hey there, this is Mike at Corner Fringe Ministries, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch our video. We hope that it blessed you and it encouraged you. And if it did, please hit the thumbs up on the video and share it with your friends and family. It's also, if you haven't already considered, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, if you'd like to watch the entire video, click on this link. And if you'd like to watch the entire series and learn more about what we do and believe here at Corner Fringe Ministries, click on this link. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching the video, and we hope to see you again soon. Shalom.